Have you ever wondered why some people go to bed at night without waking up again? Her name was Carol. She was 64 years old. She walked every morning without fail, watched what she ate, and went to bed at the same time every night. She did everything a health-conscious woman is supposed to do. And one Thursday evening, after a dinner she had made herself, after taking the medication she never missed, after doing what she had done every single night for 20 years, she went to bed and did not wake up. No chest pain, no warning, no chance to call for help. Just silence. What happened to Carol was not an accident. It was not bad luck. It was not something written in her genes that no one could have stopped. What happened to Carol was the slow, silent result of 6 habits. Ordinary, unremarkable, and even health-conscious habits that she practiced every single evening without knowing what they were doing to her heart while she slept. According to the American Heart Association, nearly half of all fatal cardiovascular events in adults over 50 occur between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., not while exercising, not during stress, during sleep, during the hours the body is supposed to be healing itself. That number is not an anomaly, it is a pattern, and patterns have causes. My name is Dr. Daniel Whitman. I am a cardiovascular specialist, and I have spent decades studying how the hearts of adults over 50 behave during the nighttime hours. And today, I am going to walk you through 6 habits that are harmful to do at night before going to bed. Habit number 1. Drinking alcohol before bed. This particular habit is the one whose danger is the most precisely understood and the most consistently underestimated by the people who practice it. And because almost every adult over 50 who drinks alcohol in the evening believes that what they are doing is essentially harmless, or even beneficial. I want to show you what is actually happening in their arteries while they sleep. Let me be precise about what this section is and is not. This is not a moral position on alcohol. This is not a claim that moderate drinking is categorically harmful in all circumstances for all people. This is a detailed physiological description of what alcohol does to the cardiovascular system during the overnight hours, a description that most people who drink in the evening have never been given, and one that I believe every adult over 50 deserves to hear clearly. When you drink alcohol in the evening, whether it is a glass of wine, a beer, or a cocktail, your liver begins processing it at a rate of approximately 1 standard drink per hour. During that metabolism, alcohol is converted into a compound called acetaldehyde before it is broken down further. Acetaldehyde is a stimulant. In the first phase of drinking, alcohol's sedative effects dominate. You feel relaxed, drowsy, and it may seem as though the alcohol is helping you sleep. But as the night progresses and the sedative phase clears, acetaldehyde builds and then clears in a process that pharmacologists call the alcohol rebound. The brain, initially sedated, swings sharply back toward arousal. This is precisely why people who drink before bed consistently fall asleep faster and then wake at 2 or 3 a.m., often unable to return to sleep. But the cardiovascular rebound is the part that makes this genuinely dangerous for people over 50. Here is what is happening inside your arteries during those hours. Alcohol causes vasodilation. Blood vessels expand, resistance drops, blood pressure initially falls. Your heart senses reduced resistance and increases its output to compensate. Then, as the alcohol clears and acetaldehyde fades, the vasodilation reverses. Blood vessels constrict, blood pressure rebounds, often overshooting the pre-drinking baseline. And in many adults over 60 with any degree of arterial stiffness, this overshoot is substantial. Blood pressure at 3 a.m. may run significantly higher than it would have without the alcohol during the exact window when cortisol is already beginning its morning rise, when clotting factors are most active, and when any unstable plaque in the arterial wall is most susceptible to rupture. Alcohol also fragments sleep architecture. It suppresses REM sleep in the first half of the night and then triggers REM rebound in the second half, a longer, more intensely active REM period that generates more extreme fluctuations in heart rate and blood pressure. It is a diuretic. It causes the kidneys to excrete more fluid, meaning your blood becomes thicker throughout the night through the same mechanism we discussed with dehydration. And it directly affects the heart's electrical conduction system. Even 2 standard drinks can measurably reduce heart rate variability and lower the threshold for atrial fibrillation in susceptible individuals, particularly those over 60, with any structural changes in the heart they may not yet know about. Melatonin is also suppressed by alcohol. Your body's primary overnight cardiovascular protective hormone, the one that lowers blood pressure, reduces cortisol, and suppresses arterial inflammation, is significantly blunted by alcohol consumption in the evening. So even while the alcohol feels like it is helping you relax before sleep, it is quietly dismantling the hormonal system that protects your arteries during the hours that follow. I treated a woman named Eleanor. She was 68 years old, a former nurse, someone who understood medicine and had spent her career caring for others. Eleanor had a glass of wine every evening, sometimes 2. She considered it one of the small pleasures of retirement, and she had no reason to question it. She began noticing that she was waking consistently between 2 and 3 in the morning, with her heart racing in a way she described as fluttery and uneven. She had had a brief spell of dizziness one morning that lasted a few minutes and then resolved. She had not mentioned either symptom to her doctor because they passed on their own, and she attributed them to stress. When she finally came in, we documented paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, an intermittent irregular heart rhythm, driven in significant part by the alcohol-induced suppression of heart rate variability and overnight REM instability. Eleanor had been a nurse for 30 years. She had never once connected her wine and her waking heart to each other. She stopped drinking within 3 hours of bedtime. The episodes reduced dramatically within 8 weeks. She told me she wished someone had told her earlier. I tell her story now so that someone will. The practical guidance, and this is not about elimination for most people, is timing. 3 to 4 hours between your last drink and the time you go to sleep is the minimum gap that allows the liver to largely complete alcohol metabolism, allows the rebound effect to pass before the most vulnerable overnight window, and gives melatonin enough runway to begin providing cardiovascular protection before you fall asleep. A drink with dinner at 6 p.m. and sleep at 10 p.m. And is a physiologically different picture than a nightcap at 10 and sleep at 11. The chemistry is the same. The timing is not. Habit number 2, eating late and eating heavy. Most people who eat late, heavy dinner do not think of it as a dangerous act. They think of it as dinner. Here is what happens inside your body when you eat a large meal late in the evening, after 8 or 9 p.m., and then lie down to sleep. Your body only has a fixed amount of blood, about 5 liters in total. When you eat a large meal, your digestive system demands an enormous share of that blood. Your stomach and intestines become the absolute priority. Blood flow to the gut increases dramatically. Your heart must work harder to supply that demand. Blood pressure rises instead of falling. Yes, your metabolism accelerates at the exact moment it is supposed to be slowing for sleep. Heart rate stays elevated. Your body is in work mode when it should be in repair mode. Think of it this way. Imagine being asked to run a full marathon while simultaneously trying to nap. Your body simply cannot do both at once. The digestive system wins, and your heart pays the price. By midnight, if you ate at 9 p.m., your heart is still pounding harder than it should to service your stomach. Blood pressure has not dipped the way it needs to. The nocturnal recovery window, the one your arteries depend on, has been stolen by your digestive system. In the medical world, we call people whose blood pressure fails to drop at night non-dippers. A research published in the Journal of Hypertension has shown that non-dippers carry a stroke risk more than double that of people whose blood pressure follows the normal nocturnal pattern. Late eating also raises triglycerides in the blood. It increases arterial inflammation. It disrupts the production of overnight repair hormones, and there is one more danger that most people never connect to their hearts. Going to bed with a full stomach elevates the risk of acid reflux. Acid reflux is not simply uncomfortable. The vagus nerve, which runs directly alongside the esophagus, connects to the heart. When acid hits the lower esophagus repeatedly during sleep, it can stimulate the vagus nerve in ways that destabilize the heart's rhythm. Nighttime palpitations after a heavy dinner are not anxiety. They are a physiological chain reaction. A major study published in the European Heart Journal followed more than 100,000 adults across several years. The finding was stark. Adults who regularly ate late dinners had a significantly higher rate of nighttime heart attacks and strokes compared to those who finished eating at least 3 hours before bed. I had a patient named Robert. He was 61 years old, a contractor, physically strong, rarely sick a day in his life. Robert's family ate dinner together at 9 every night, which was simply how things had always been done. He thought nothing of it. One night, after a heavy pasta dinner, he woke at 2 a.m. with pressure across his chest and pain radiating down his left arm. He recognized it immediately and called for help. He survived. He was lucky. When we reviewed what had been building in his arteries over years of late, heavy meals, the picture was clear. His heart had been working through the night, every night, when it should have been resting. The fix does not require giving up the foods you love. It requires moving them earlier. Finish your last substantial meal at least 3 hours before bed. If you must eat late, make it light. Lean protein, vegetables, nothing heavy in fat or salt. Give your heart permission to rest. It cannot do that while it is being used as a delivery service for your stomach. Now, the next habit is one that surprises people because it involves something they are already doing to protect themselves. The danger is not in doing it. The danger is in how they are doing it. And it is a distinction their doctor may never have explained. Habit number 3, skipping medications or taking them at the wrong time. If you take medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, or blood thinning, I need you to pay very close attention to this section, because what I am about to describe is something that affects millions of people who are trying to do the right thing and failing to get full protection because of one detail that almost no one ever explains. Blood pressure is not a fixed number. It rises and falls throughout the day in a predictable 24-hour rhythm. In a healthy cardiovascular system, blood pressure is highest during active waking hours, falls during the evening, drops to its lowest point in the middle of the night, the nocturnal dip, and then rises again sharply in the early morning hours as cortisol surges to prepare the body for waking. And this pattern is one of the most consistent rhythms in all of human biology. But in a significant number of adults over 50, particularly those with hypertension, diabetes, or kidney disease, this dip does not happen. Blood pressure either stays flat through the night or, in the most dangerous cases, actually rises. These individuals are called non-dippers or reverse dippers, and their overnight blood pressure pattern is a substantially stronger predictor of heart attack and stroke than any single daytime reading. Yet it is almost never measured in standard care. Here is where medication timing becomes critical. The standard practice for decades has been to prescribe blood pressure medication as a morning dose. Patients take it with breakfast. Simple, easy to remember, consistent. But a morning dose reaches its peak concentration in the blood roughly 2 to 4 hours after ingestion. By 1 or 2 a.m., the exact window when the cardiovascular system is most vulnerable, when the cortisol surge is building, when plaque rupture risk is highest, many patients are running on residual drug levels. The medication is wearing off precisely when it is needed most. Imagine you are guarding a door that is most likely to be broken down between 3 and 6 in the morning. And every day you send your guard home at midnight. That is what morning-only dosing looks like for many non-dipping patients. Large studies published in The Lancet and the European Heart Journal have shown that properly timed medication calibrated to cover the overnight period, can reduce nighttime heart attack and stroke risk by nearly half. Not with a new drug, not with a higher dose, simply by aligning the timing of the medication with the timing of the risk. And then there is the even simpler danger: missing doses entirely. Silent blood pressure spikes during sleep, the kind that rupture plaques and form clots without a single symptom you would ever notice, are disproportionately common in people who take their medication inconsistently. They often strike without warning. By the time the damage is apparent, it is already done. Please do this. First, never skip doses. Set a phone alarm if you need to. Make it non-negotiable. Second, call your physician this week and ask specifically, given my blood pressure pattern and the times I sleep and wake, is my current dosing schedule covering the overnight window? Ask about ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, a small cuff worn for 24 hours that records your pressure every 20 minutes through the night. It will show your doctor exactly when you are at risk and whether your medication is covering that window. This one conversation could be the most important medical decision you make this year. Please have your doctor guide any changes to your medication schedule. Do not adjust it on your own. Now, we are at the halfway point, and I want you to take a moment to reset, because what comes next is a different kind of danger. The first 3 habits are things people do to themselves, knowingly or unknowingly. The next one is something people do to themselves on purpose, a deliberate choice that feels genuinely sensible. And that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. I want to pause here and ask you something directly. Of the 3 habits we have covered so far, are you doing any of them? Be honest with yourself, because the reason these patterns persist is not ignorance. It is the fact that they feel completely normal. Alcohol that everyone jokes about. Late dinner because the family is busy. Medication mostly on schedule. These things become part of the furniture of a life. They are so ordinary that they become invisible. If you enjoy this video so far, kindly like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share to someone dear to you that you know needs this. Because the next 3 habits on this list are even more invisible than the first 3. They happen at the cellular level, in the chemistry of the blood, in the pressure inside arteries you cannot feel, in the temperature of a room you barely notice. No one warns you about them. No one connects them to strokes and heart attacks. And yet, by the weight of the available evidence, they may be responsible for more overnight cardiovascular events in adults over 50 than almost anything else. Habit number 4, going to bed dehydrated. This habit is one that many adults over 50 practice deliberately, and for a reason that sounds entirely sensible. They limit water intake in the evening because they do not want to wake up in the night to use the bathroom. Broken sleep is frustrating. Getting up in the dark increases the risk of falls. It disrupts the rest they are trying to protect. So they stop drinking water after dinner. They feel practical. They feel smart. And inside their arteries, the consequences begin to build. Here is what happens inside your body when you go to bed even mildly dehydrated. Your blood is approximately 90% water by volume. When your hydration level drops, your blood volume decreases, but the solid components of your blood stay exactly the same. The red blood cells, the clotting proteins, the inflammatory markers, the cholesterol particles, all of them are now suspended in a smaller volume of liquid. Your blood becomes thicker, more concentrated, more viscous, more prone to clotting. Imagine the difference between pumping clean water through a garden hose versus pumping thick syrup. The same pump has to work dramatically harder to move the syrup. The pressure against the walls of the hose is much higher. The risk of blockage, anywhere the hose narrows, is far greater. That is precisely what you are asking your aging heart to do when you go to bed dehydrated. While you sleep, your body continues losing water. Through every exhaled breath, through mild perspiration, through normal kidney function. If you start the night already behind on hydration, by 3 or 4 a.m., your blood is at its absolute thickest. It is moving slowly. The platelets, The cells responsible for clotting are concentrated, activated, and prone to clustering together. If one of those clusters lodges in a narrowed coronary artery or a cerebral vessel, the lights go out. This is not a theoretical risk. A study published in the Journal of Cardiovascular Disease found that even moderate overnight dehydration raised the risk of nighttime cardiovascular events by more than 60% in adults over 50. The mechanism is direct. Thicker blood, higher pressure, increased clotting tendency, all converging in the early morning hours when the cortisol surge is simultaneously activating the same clotting systems. After age 50, the thirst mechanism also becomes less reliable. You can be meaningfully dehydrated before you feel any thirst at all, which means the warning signal your body would normally send is delayed or absent entirely. I remember a patient named Victor. He was 70 years old, a meticulous man, a retired engineer who had designed water systems for a living. He knew more about fluid mechanics than almost anyone I have ever met. He also told me with great certainty that he never drank water after 6 p.m. because waking up at night was, as he put it, unacceptable. One morning, just before dawn, Victor suffered an ischemic stroke in his sleep. An imaging showed a clot blocking a cerebral artery. His blood work on admission showed his blood was unusually concentrated. He recovered significant function over months of rehabilitation. When I told him what the overnight dehydration had likely contributed, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said he wished someone had explained the fluid mechanics of his own blood to him years earlier. The solution is straightforward and does not require waking up multiple times. Distribute your water intake throughout the day. Do not leave hydration until the evening. Then drink a small glass of water, 4 to 6 ounces, no more, 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Use the bathroom completely before lying down. Keep a small glass of water on your nightstand. If you wake once during the night, take 2 or 3 small sips, not a large drink. This single adjustment keeps blood viscosity at a safer level through the critical early morning hours. It costs nothing. It asks almost nothing of you. Habit number 5. Living with undiagnosed or untreated sleep apnea. This is the most underdiagnosed cardiovascular emergency in adults over 50 in the United States. I choose the word emergency deliberately, not for dramatic effect, but because that is the precise physiological description of what is happening inside the body of approximately 1 in 4 adults over 50 during every single night of sleep. And most of them have no idea. Obstructive sleep apnea occurs when the muscles of the soft palate and upper airway relax during sleep and collapse, blocking the passage of air. Breathing stops for 10 seconds, for 20 seconds, sometimes for 30 seconds or more. Oxygen levels in the blood begin to fall, and when they drop below a critical threshold, the brain fires a survival alarm. Adrenaline floods the system. Heart rate jumps from 55 beats per minute to 100 or 110 in under 3 seconds. Blood pressure spikes by 40 to 60 millimeters of mercury almost instantly. That is a blood pressure surge equivalent to sprinting as hard as you possibly can, except you are horizontal and technically asleep. The airway reopens. You take a breath. Oxygen recovers. And within 60 to 90 seconds, it happens again. In a person with moderate sleep apnea, this cycle repeats 15 to 30 times every hour. In severe cases, it can exceed 60 times per hour. That means your body can trigger a full adrenaline-driven cardiovascular crisis more than 400 times in a single night. Every night, for years, without you ever consciously waking, without anyone watching you having any reason to be alarmed, and without a single symptom during the day that you would ever connect to your heart. Think of it this way. Imagine someone standing over you while you sleep and pouring cold water on your face every 90 seconds. Your body would surge awake in panic every single time. That is the cardiovascular experience of sleep apnea, except no one can see it, and you sleep through every alarm. The cumulative damage of untreated sleep apnea over years is catastrophic and well documented. Repeated adrenaline surges chronically elevate blood pressure around the clock, not just at night. They accelerate arterial stiffening. They drive chronic inflammation inside blood vessels. They dramatically increase blood clotting tendency. They deprive the heart muscle of the oxygen it needs during the very hours it is supposed to be recovering. And they are the most reliable driver of atrial fibrillation in the over 50 population. An irregular heart rhythm that itself multiplies stroke risk by 5 times. By 3 a.m., in a person with undiagnosed sleep apnea, the inside of their cardiovascular system is in a state of perpetual siege. Data from the Wisconsin Sleep Cohort study found that adults with untreated severe sleep apnea carried a stroke risk 3 times higher than matched controls and a cardiovascular mortality rate 4 times higher. Those numbers are not subtle associations. They are among the strongest dose-response relationships in all of cardiovascular epidemiology. I had a patient named Thomas. He was 57 years old, a high school football coach, physically imposing, proud of his endurance. His wife had been telling him for years that he snored like a freight train. He laughed it off. He woke most mornings with a headache across his forehead, which he attributed to stress. His blood pressure required 3 medications to control and was still running high. One morning he woke disoriented, with his right hand numb and his speech slurred. He had suffered a stroke during the night. His sleep study afterward showed 74 apnea events per hour, severe by any clinical measure. He had been triggering hundreds of adrenaline surges every single night for years. A treatment with CPAP therapy allowed his blood pressure to drop to a level where 2 of his 3 medications were eventually discontinued. The slurred speech resolved, but the episode had cost him the coaching career he loved. He retired at 57. Please take these warning signs seriously. Loud chronic snoring, loud enough to be heard through a closed door. A bed partner who has watched you stop breathing for several seconds before you gasp or snort. Morning headaches across the forehead, feeling genuinely exhausted despite what should have been adequate sleep. Blood pressure that your doctor describes as difficult to control. Any one of these warrants a conversation. Any 2 of them warrant a sleep study. Home sleep testing is now available, accessible, and straightforward. You wear a small device to bed in your own room, and the data is analyzed, and your doctor has an answer within days. Treatment works. CPAP therapy is highly effective. The machines have improved dramatically, quieter, lighter, more comfortable than anything from a decade ago. Positional therapy, dental appliances, and in specific cases, surgical options are also available. If you tried CPAP years ago and stopped, it is worth revisiting. The cardiovascular case for persistence is overwhelming. The last habit is one that almost nobody connects to cardiovascular risk at all. It is about the room you sleep in, and the danger comes not from what you eat, what you drink, or what you do, but from a number on a thermostat. Habit number 6, sleeping in a room that is too hot or too cold. When people hear that bedroom temperature affects cardiovascular health, the reaction is often skepticism. It sounds like the kind of health advice that gets stretched beyond its evidence. But the physiology here is concrete, the mechanism is well understood, and the research is consistent. The temperature of the room you sleep in directly determines whether your cardiovascular system can accomplish what it needs to accomplish during the night, or whether it is quietly fighting for stability instead. Here is the core mechanism. For your body to enter and maintain the deep, slow-wave stages of sleep, the stages where cardiovascular recovery actually occurs, your core body temperature must fall by approximately 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius from its waking level. This temperature drop is not incidental. It is a biological prerequisite. It is the trigger that signals the brain to deepen sleep stages and the cardiovascular system to reduce its demand. Without it, deep sleep is harder to achieve, shorter in duration, and less restorative. Your heart gets less of the recovery time it depends on. When your bedroom is too warm, Above 24 degrees Celsius, or roughly 75 degrees Fahrenheit, your body struggles to release the heat it needs to lose. Blood vessels near the skin surface dilate to radiate heat outward. Heart rate stays elevated to support that heat release process. You sweat, losing fluid and thickening your blood at the same time. Sleep architecture suffers. You spend more time in light, fragmented stages, and less time in the deep stages where true cardiovascular repair happens. Research published in the journal Sleep Medicine Reviews found that sleeping in warm environments significantly elevated nighttime blood pressure and morning cortisol levels, two of the most direct cardiovascular risk factors in older adults. But extreme cold is equally dangerous, and it operates through a completely different mechanism. Cold temperatures cause blood vessels to constrict, to clamp down and reduce surface area to conserve heat. This increases vascular resistance throughout the circulatory system. Your heart has to pump against a higher pressure with every beat. In arteries that are already stiffened, this extra resistance is amplified. In the early morning hours, when cortisol is rising and blood pressure is already climbing toward its daily peak, and the additional vasoconstriction of a cold room can push the arterial system past the threshold that triggers plaque rupture. European cardiovascular data has documented consistent spikes in overnight heart attacks and strokes during cold periods, particularly in adults over 60. Think of a water pipe in winter. When the water inside is warm, the pipe remains flexible and the flow is smooth. When the temperature drops sharply, the pipe contracts, the water thickens, and anything weak in the structure of the pipe becomes the site of a crack. Your arteries in a cold bedroom at 4 a.m. are navigating exactly that scenario. I had a patient named Dorothy. She was 76 years old, a former music teacher, gentle and warm, someone who slept with every window open regardless of the season because she had always believed fresh cold air was healthy. During one particularly cold stretch of winter, she woke at 5 in the morning with crushing pressure in her chest and pain in her jaw. Paramedics reached her in time. In the hospital, we documented a heart attack caused by acute coronary spasm, the same mechanism that cold-induced vasoconstriction triggers. Dorothy had slept with her window open for 40 years. That one night, her cardiovascular system, older, stiffer, carrying plaque she did not know about, ran out of reserve. The target is a narrow range, between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius, or 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. At this range, the body can achieve the core temperature drop needed for deep sleep without triggering either heat release strain or cold-induced vasoconstriction. Heart rate stabilizes, blood pressure regulation improves, the sleep architecture deepens. The cardiovascular maintenance window opens fully. If you sleep with a partner who prefers a different temperature, this conversation is worth having in explicitly cardiovascular terms, because the physiological case for this range is not about comfort. It is about whether your arterial system gets to repair itself overnight or spends those hours fighting your thermostat. Now, everything we have discussed points to one practical question. What does an evening actually look like when you are protecting your heart rather than inadvertently stressing it? Let me walk you through it, beginning at 6:30 p.m. At 6:30 p.m., your kitchen closes for heavy eating. This is not about starving yourself. It is about giving your digestive system a 3-hour head start before your heart needs to rest. Eat your evening meal now, focusing on lean protein. Eat vegetables and moderate carbohydrates. Keep sodium low. Salt causes your body to retain fluid overnight, raising blood pressure through a direct volume mechanism that persists right into the morning cortisol surge. If you drink alcohol, this window is when it ends. 3 to 4 hours before sleep gives the liver time to complete its work and allows the rebound effect to pass before your most vulnerable overnight window. At 7:30 p.m., drink a small glass of water, 4 to 6 ounces, not a large volume, just enough to begin topping off your overnight plasma volume without overloading the kidneys. If your doctor has prescribed evening medications, take them as directed. And if you have not yet had the conversation about whether your blood pressure medication timing is optimal for overnight coverage, I make a note to make that call tomorrow morning. At 9 p.m., screens end. The phone goes to another room on Do Not Disturb. The television goes off. This 60-minute screen-free window gives your pineal gland the runway it needs to begin producing melatonin, your heart's primary overnight protective hormone. Dim the lights in the rooms you are using. Read, stretch gently, have a calm conversation, or listen to quiet music. The physiological shift that begins in this hour will determine whether your blood pressure dips the way it should in the first 90 minutes of sleep. At 9:45 p.m., set your thermostat to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the range at which your core body temperature can accomplish its necessary overnight drop to enter and sustain deep, slow-wave sleep. Check your sleep position. If you snore or have been told you stop breathing, sleep on your side tonight. A body pillow placed behind your back will help you maintain that position through the night without effort. At 10 p.m., use the bathroom completely before lying down. Move slowly when you do. Place 4 ounces of water on your nightstand for small sips if you wake. Lie down and let the cool room, the absence of screens, and the absence of food begin doing their quiet, protective work. Your heart has been beating without a single rest since the moment you were born. This routine is the maintenance window it deserves. Before you leave, kindly subscribe to this channel. I share life-saving health information explained clearly for adults over 50 every week. Second, like this video. It helps this message reach others who may not know they are at risk. Third, leave a comment. Write saying, "I am protecting my heart tonight." Your commitment may inspire someone else to act. And finally, share this video with someone you care about. A partner, a parent, a friend. You may never know whose life you protect. Take care of your heart tonight. It is working for you right now without asking for anything in return. Give it the evening it has earned. See you in the next video.